for the school students. And something that the children, the school students, can benefit. Make it an innovation and education tool so that the Palestinian and other people too, also, and it can be used globally also. And we solve these problems. It's not complicated anymore with our kids. It's not expensive anymore with our kids. We made it affordable. We made it user-friendly.
Innovation. Their problem is what they cannot.
They cannot take advantage of technology.
They cannot take advantage of technology.
For automation, if anybody who wants to make a project,
particularly for electrical
it doesn't have to be computer science or engineering. Now this kit can be used by anybody who is a hobbyist that wants to take advantage of technology to solve daily life problems. This can be done in a big computer, and it can be done in a microcomputer. We call it a microcontroller.
So for your customers, what is the really bad problem that they have?
The customers, and we succeeded 200% with the target customers, which are the students, because we conducted many training courses and seminars and students in Palestinian schools, and we were 200% successful with them. The problem is them to buy the
Well, it's not. I'm not talking about your problem. I'm talking about the students' problem.
Right, because they don't have any hands-on kits.
They have no hands-on way to learn.
To learn orally, they don't have anything practically.
Any other feedback or thoughts?
What do the kit contains?
Software, hardware, sensors. It is basically everything that the kid or any adult needs to achieve his or her goal in experiments.
It's a microprocessor.
Well, I don't want to get technical. This is part of our process. It's very friendly. It's the most friendly kit. It's very affordable, between $50 to $60. That contains the hardware, the software, and everything. The student actually can take it home and play with it.
Yeah.
So that's what we are doing, and we have managed to achieve the big prizes.
State that value proposition, in 20 seconds.
The value proposition of Imad.
Yeah.
It's basically
what is the problem, and why does it solve that problem?
as an educational tool. I've had a look at Imad, and this is knowing what Imad has got. As an educational tool, it's a fantastic tool to give to the school, to students at school level, right? To understand the basis of microprocessor technologies and how to use them, because now everything is microprocessor based, how to use it, to play with it, and to make things work on and off, and to sense temperature.
So, I'm going to back up here.
This is the kind of thing.
They are going to show on TV.
Yeah.
So that is why they don't know about Palestine, but they know about Palestine when there is a bombing or something like this.
So this works against us, because so they don't trust us, because all they know is the bad news.
So that is why I asked the question.
عشان هيك لما نعطي البرودكت تبعنا, we want to de-emphasize the word Palestine and emphasize quality. And again, it's just
value, right?
it's the value proposition of the product.
If you're delivering value, I really don't think people are concerned about those issues, but more about you, and they're making sure you're okay. But if your product does the job, right, and you're credible to deliver the solution, I think they're going to follow. I really do. It sells itself. Yeah. Anyways, thank you all. Really appreciate it. I'd love to keep taking questions from you. Oh, Scott, thank you for pointing this out. This is the book that these pictures were taken from. Scott happened to have a copy of it. But this is very useful, and I hope this has been helpful. Blake, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I would like to do a closing. Jimmy, the opening onto the closing.
Yes.
On behalf of Big Team, I would like to thank GTVC team for being with us today. I think there's a value added in terms of wealth of knowledge on good practices, how to go to the markets, and what are the experiences. There's a lot of takeaways from this short and brief presentation. My takeaway was, I mean, we need to deal with failures. Failure, I mean, there's a learning process out of failure. In our society, it should not be a showstopper. There's a lot of constraints, challenges ahead of us as entrepreneurs. But I think with entrepreneurial zeal and dedication, I think we have a good chance and opportunity to make it to global markets. The thanks to TTBC they're with us in this process of trying to reach these global markets. So thanks Scott for putting a lot of effort with the team. Bidaya team includes Hassan, myself, as well as Jamil, Maher, and Abdullah. So we're here, everyone around in this room is really here and dedicated to support the entrepreneurs to make it successful in their startup businesses. Thanks again, Victor, for this presentation.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
We'll
Thanks
make a
everyone.
copy available as well.
Yes. شكرا كثير لكم.
Victim Bidaya project in its implementation. He'll talk to us today about connecting the market, turning the ideas into business reality, and we'll talk about global markets. Please.
Thank you. Appreciate all of you for coming here today. And I also have a deep appreciation for folks here at PICT. Laith and Hassan have been tremendous hosts and sponsors for the work we do, and so we're very glad to be able to work with them. I've got about less than an hour, right, because we're starting a little bit late, to talk to you about some thoughts on global markets, development of business value propositions, and development of business models. And I want this to be a very interactive opportunity. And so some of you are developing businesses. In fact, I know some of you are developing businesses. I'd like to actually be able to call on you, or have you, better yet, have you volunteer as we go along to actually talk about some of your businesses and actually generate one of the things that we really take a lot of pride in philosophically is the idea that collaboration yields better results. So if you get more minds contributing, you actually have group wisdom, and group wisdom is more intelligent than individual wisdom. So that's why I'm going to encourage this interactive discussion. But I'm going to start with, let me figure out why that's happening here. I'm going to start with this idea that I think a lot of you know very well, which is that great ideas and entrepreneurial energy are in the world. It's something that is becoming increasingly clear as the markets continue to evolve. But the great paradox is that the venture ecosystems, that is the communities that build these really great startup companies, they tend to be clustered. And traditionally in the world, Silicon Valley and the Boston area in the United States were the two major hotspots for this activity. But now we're finding this starting to change. And why is that? Well, we find, for instance, this is the classical startup company. So when people look back on the model for innovation, starting 40 years ago, roughly 30, 40, 50 years ago, depending on your viewpoint, this is how innovation happened. It happened very locally. And this was where a startup, you'd have technology coming out of a place like Stanford University, which is in the middle. You'd have your legal team, and at the corner of Page Mill Road and El Camino Road in San Palo Alto is actually, there are a whole bunch of startup law firms that focus specifically on serving technology companies. Then you have management would come locally, you'd have strategic partners come locally, and then your capital would all come from this area, which is the corner of Sand Hill Road and the Highway 280. And the idea was that a startup company could be built with all the resources within a 30-minute drive. That's not even a 30-minute drive, that's about a 20-minute drive to everything you need to do to create a startup company. The world has changed though. Things are very different today. And this is something that is what keeps folks like me out here actively involved in these markets as well as other markets, which is this is a case study of an actual startup company that we've been involved with in the last few years. We helped build this company. And this is a company where the technology came out of this place here in near the New York area, but we ended up putting together partners and expertise throughout the United States. We had capital coming out of Silicon Valley and China. We had marketing advisors in Los Angeles. We had co-chairmen out of Florida and Minnesota and North Dakota. And we had the customer markets primarily are going to be in Asia and South America and in Eastern Europe before we ever get to the United States. And manufacturing is going to be distributed between the United States as well as in emerging markets. So this is a company that's very, very different from the old traditional model of startup companies. And if you think about what this means for places like Palestine, it means that you can actually start to think of how you build enterprises very differently than you did before. This is what we do. We sit in the middle of this vast network of over $4 billion a year in innovation investment because we see this opportunity, which is the connection of all these different components around the world. And we can actually help grow companies by connecting these different pieces together. So this is just a little bit about what we do, and I'm going to get into the stuff that actually applies more to your businesses. We are venture capital focused on global innovation, using capital as a lever to grow economic opportunity. And we look at, in our work, we see well over 1,000 investment opportunities a year to get involved with. And what we're able to take advantage of is all these different connections, whether it's universities, corporations, law firms, banks, various technology institutions, entrepreneurs, corporations that we know, and help put these different pieces together. So what we're not going to talk about today is business plans. And some people are often quite surprised by this. But companies in Silicon Valley are able to raise, full rounds of capital without writing business plans. And the reason is because a business plan is kind of like a farm. It's when you know exactly what your product is, you know exactly what your customer needs, and you know exactly how much it costs to make your product, and you know how much it's going to cost to sell the product, and you can build out a whole plan about how to roll that out, because you know everything. You have all this information. There's a lot of certainty in a business plan. And so when you go to business school, a lot of business schools still teach business planning, and how do you actually create these structures? How do you create these really complicated financial models around business development? And so you find a lot of the traditional financial training for the traditional financial institutions, even buyout firms, and even some late-stage venture capital firms, they rely on business plans. We like to say the difference is between business planning and what we call business modeling, is that business plans are kind of like farming. In a farm, if you make $2 from every square meter, that's better than if you make $1 from every square meter. But in the process of startup innovation, the real value often comes from the unexpected thing, right? In a farm, if you have a weed growing in a farm, you pull it out. You want to kill that weed. But in startups, you're trying to build weeds. You're trying to actually nurture the things that are somewhat unexpected. And so in trying to do this process, what it requires is constant conversation, constant iteration. And when you build a business, it really requires you to focus on building a vision first. Which is, what is this going to look like in the future? You don't necessarily know exactly what the customer is quite yet, right? You don't know exactly what they're going to pay you for, but you have an idea of what the future is going to look like. And so we call this envisioning a future state. So much of human motivation comes from our ability in our brain. The part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, right above and behind your eye, is where you actually envision what the future of the world might look like. That is often the major motivation for what causes people to get involved in startup companies. Because if you think about it, when you're starting these companies, even when you have a few people, you don't even really quite know what it's going to look like. But it's the motivation that, we're going to make this succeed in 2 years, and 3 years, and 5 years. It keeps you going. And so the process of entrepreneurship is very much about storytelling. It's about putting together these ideas. And so you start with this idea of what the future state of mind is going to look like. What is the objective? What is the pain? That is, what is the problem you're trying to solve in the world? Right? For a customer, for somebody that really needs a solution. What is their deepest problem? And then what are the current solutions out there? Why is it not working? And then what makes you able to solve that in a very unique and special way? And the additional piece to all this is passion. And this is something a lot of people will talk about, but they don't really explain why. And so I'm going to explain why passion really matters. It's because entrepreneurship doesn't actually make a lot of sense. For each individual person, you could probably have a much more normal, stable job, not starting a crazy company, right? And we find this true in most parts of the world, right? 20 years ago, starting a company, 10 years ago, starting a company was viewed even as a more crazy idea than it is today. And even today, it's still viewed as somewhat of a crazy idea, but a lot less so than it was a few years ago. And it's because it sort of is. It actually is. The odds are completely against you. You work much, much harder than you would if you were taking a traditional job. So unless something motivates you and keeps you going, it's going to be very difficult to make it work. Every single company we've been involved with ends up dying 100 times before it succeeds. In fact, Every week, something happens with one of our companies that looks like we're on the verge of death in every one of these companies. And all of you know, those of you who started companies, every week you wonder, is this it? You know, am I ready to give this up? Because it's so hard. And you know, there have been several times you came really close to giving it up already. So passion is incredibly important only because that is often what keeps you going when there's no other reason to do it. So we're going to start with this idea of value proposition, which is the heart and soul of business model, which is what you do when you're starting so early. And this is where I'm going to ask you to get involved in this conversation with me. And I'm going to do it myself. So I'm going to give you a value proposition out of some of the current work I'm doing. But a value proposition it boils down to what makes your company different and valuable. So I just want to throw this out right now. What is the definition of value? I don't know if there's an Arabic word for value, but what?
Quality.
Quality.
Value is premium. It's the value of a product or an idea or whatever.
Benefits.
Benefits.
It's what you see in something.
Service.
It's what you see in something.
What you see in something.
What a certain idea can deliver as an output,
It's an output.
a solution.
Now, is value something that
What others see in you.
what others see in you? Is it something that others see in you, or is it what you see in you?
What others?
What others see in you. So is there a difference between the value that someone else sees in you and the value that you're actually delivering?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah. And what's the difference between those, the value that someone sees in you and the value that you're putting in?
You see your value from the corners you are working from certain corners, from certain, but others look at the whole box from outside and they estimate the whole issue, the whole frame. You are in the middle of clashes, of workflow. You don't see the whole picture all the time.
Yeah.
But outsiders see the whole picture.
So value is perceived, right? It's what's on the other side. As Warren Buffett once said, price is what you pay and value is what you get, right? So everyone is willing to pay money for, a new phone or a cell phone or whatever, because they feel like they're getting more value out of it than they're giving, right? So if value is based on perception, how do you find out what it's worth to somebody else?
How much it will serve him, how much it will solve problems for him, how much it will cater his needs and his requirements, how much it will facilitate his job, his work, his workflow,
How do you find out what somebody thinks of something?
You have to present yourself there. Tell them, basically. Tell what you have, and try to convince them that you can provide them, for a return, for example, on his investment. That you have value, that you can add value to his business or his venture.
Put yourself in his food.
and
Is it that you're trying to convince them, or that you just want to listen to what they have to say?
in my view, you have to do your homework first. Do your research and know what exactly is going in the market. What is he facing? What is his problems? What is his obstacles? How you're going to innovate a solution that he can overcome these obstacles for him. And from here comes the value of your product.
I think that's all right. I mean, underlying all this is the idea that value is driven through conversation, right? Because it's perception, right? Value is not just what you think it's worth. It's the difference between what they think it's worth and what you think it's worth, and the ability to combine those things together. So I'm going to give you an example of a value proposition and a story of a company that we've been involved with. I don't even think of this in advance. I'm just telling you this is what we're doing today in some of our companies. So we had a technology which could be used for water purification, and originally we thought, well, water purification. So of course you want to go to sell this to build big, desalination plants, because that's where the big money is. And so we started to try to focus on that and try to spend money on that, and try to push the research in that direction, develop a product for desalination, so we could sell it, to the big plants in here in the Middle East, all over the world. That was essentially that was a huge mistake, and the idea didn't work. And the reason was because we decided it was a great idea ourselves, and we started pushing our invention out to the market, because we thought, without having a conversation with the other side of what matters. One of the great secrets of membrane technology for filtration is that it actually isn't worth that much for desalination. In fact, if you can double the efficiency of the membrane for filtering seawater, you only will yield about 5 to 10% cost benefit to the end customer. And it'll take you about 5 years to get to that point anyways. So in 5 to 10 years, General Electric will have developed a 10% cheaper solution. In fact, they will probably have built a 30% cheaper solution by then. So your 10% difference makes no difference in the market. Right? Just because you think it's twice as good doesn't mean it actually matters to the customer. And there's a bunch of reasons why that's the case, but unless you actually understand the customer's problems, that's not obvious to you. So we took this membrane and we started working with people that actually understood the customer base. And we found out that if you could actually take the same technology and apply it to consumer filters in your house, you could actually help people in their homes get standards of water that were near the purification standards that they could get from like a government-approved municipal facility. And because we knew that market, we knew exactly what the price was, and we knew what the customers were buying in that area. We actually are on the verge of pushing this product and launching this product out into that market. So the value proposition is in the home, you cannot get bacteria and virus-free water on a guaranteed basis for a very, very low cost price point, without chemicals, without electricity, without high pressure. So we've got the ability to actually solve that problem for the consumer. Okay? So that was a kind of a long story and description, but I wanted to give you an example of how people can make a mistake with pushing out their invention first, technology first, without actually listening to what's happening at the very end and figuring out what people are willing to pull, right? What people are already demanding, what value they're seeking. So do we have any volunteers here that want to try to, within 20 to 30 seconds, describe the value proposition of your business? And then we're going to ask everybody to see if they can provide additional feedback on it. So I'm looking for a victim that's willing to subject themselves to this. And it is talk about the pain. What is the problem in the market that you're trying to solve? And then how does yours solve it in a really interesting way? Please.
Start from the premise that somebody else's problem is your opportunity. This is a basic thing for an entrepreneur. And there was an opportunity for me when I started developing my product with the electricity company, and they needed a wireless solution, which was not available, let's say, about 3 or 4 years ago. And I developed the model, the prototype, and they liked it, and they decided to use it on the electricity grid. And in a sense, solving a sort of a problem for a client is in itself presenting a value to him, which a solution that's not there is very costly. Okay? And by providing something at the right time, in the right place basically, and to solve the problem for my client, I was able to reduce their expenses, reduce the outage basically in electricity. When you reduce the outage time, which is the unscheduled outages, it means you're selling more electricity. So given also the problems that we have here in terms of political, the wall and access to remote places where the electricity company has its installations, I managed to help the company in improving their operations. So there was benefit and value in what I did. That, I think, sums it.
You are talking about AMR.
No, I'm talking about a solution for remote control and monitoring through
the internet.
Through not internet, through GPRS actually,
Okay.
through cellular network.
Well, thank you. So let me try to dig a little bit deeper here, because I want to start backwards in the other direction. My story was probably the wrong example because I actually started backwards from what I wanted to start at. So let's start with the problem, which is Jerusalem Electrical Utility. What was their problem that they had?
The problem was wireless access. Access.
The issue, their problem was outages. Their problem was outages, right? Outages, electrical outages.
Actually, the problem was when there were outages that they had to send the team to go and reset the switch gear and bring it back online. So basically, it would take something between 1 hour and 4 hours to just go and do a manual reset.
Got it. So there's a delay. There's a long delay
It's a long
from
delay.
the time that there's an outage and the time they can fix it.
Yes.
And so you were able to go in, and how much did you shrink that delay? How much faster were they able to
Yeah,
respond?
from, let's say, from an average of 2 hours to 1 minute.
It's big, so it's a big difference.
There's a big difference, yes.
So you solved the problem, because somebody at Jerusalem Electrical Utility, every time there's an outage, they have a nightmare. They probably worry, 2 hours, I could lose my job if, the power's out for 4 hours, right? So they're worried about how long power's out. And so you solve this problem for them by reducing outage time dramatically. Okay. And so that's traditionally the way people talk about value proposition is problem, customer, someone at that customer is not sleeping at night because they worry about something happening. Do you solve that? How do you solve that problem? How do you make that person sleep better? And we say a market pain, not a vitamin, right? A painkiller, a vitamin makes you a little bit better, but a painkiller solves a big problem for somebody. Another volunteer? Yep.
I like what you said about making sense of things, because our project started actually not as a business, but a group of friends, Palestinian patriotic engineering nerds. We actually we wanted to help the Palestinian people and give them a tool for invention and innovation. And it started, as how we can, with all our expertise, some of us were living abroad, and we wanted to help the Palestinian community and give them a tool for innovation. And we started improvising, and business and money was not part of our calculations. And because most of us did not have any business sense, we were technical people, all of us. And we came up with a kit for invention and innovation. And when we start digging into the curriculum, we found out that
learning of microprocessing computer hardware is very abstract. People often learn it from a book, and it's very uninteresting. Therefore, they don't learn it. But it really is a major thing. That it's a huge potential source for a good career, good income, adds a lot of value to the economy in the region if you can actually have people learn this matter. But the problem is, people aren't interested because it's not enjoyable and they can't touch it, feel it. You give them something that's very easy and cheap to use that lets them experience and learn hands-on, right?
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Exactly.
This is the value.
Exactly.
Or parents, yeah.
They can't.
Does that make sense? Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do one more example. You guys are volunteering, right? Okay.
My name is Elias. I'm owner of a Palestinian website in English Panel. The problem which we try to solve is to let the Palestinian people and non-Palestinian living in Palestine to join together and participate in what they have to offer and what they need on an online-based website. And we can see from our case that there is a potential in the Palestinian market. There's many things people simply throw away and other people need it. And so we try to convince the people to put their needs, what they need and what they have to offer online, that other people can benefit from this for a fixed price or fixed price.
Okay.
So, yeah, and we created a website named English Parent, yes.
Named English?
English Parent.
So,
it's a Palestinian website in English.
English Parent.
So I'm going to call on someone new that hasn't talked so far to help me figure out what the value. Help try to figure this out, because I think I've noticed the tendency is to actually talk about what you have and how you need to convince other people to use it. What I'm trying to do is to go backwards. I'm trying to say, what is their problem before you existed? What is their problem, and then how are you coming to fix that problem for somebody? Right? I'm trying to get you to reverse your thinking. Does that make sense? Can I get a volunteer or someone? Yeah.
Do I have to stand up?
No, it doesn't matter.
I'm an old man.
You're not an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Actually, we have built a product. It's called 4i. Sorry.
It's about program and grants management information system. It's mainly used for NGOs, public sector, or any company who have projects. Now the problem at NGOs or any other sectors, they have to use two systems. I mean the computer system, one for grants and the other one for financial or accounting. Because it is difficult to find a single solution that have or that combines both grants as well as project management or program management information system. So we built a system or a product that has both. So instead of using two systems, we made them use single system. And for the reports, I mean the final reports, yearly reports, they used, I mean the client, they used to take like 1 week to 10 days to generate the yearly report. Using this system will take them no more than 5 minutes to generate this report.
There you go. The last sentence was it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their problem is it takes a long time to generate a report.
Yeah.
And so you were able to, and two systems, right? Because it takes time to reconcile.
So you're offering a solution on one platform that offers a solution for the whole entity and to generate reports
Right.
in a short time.
Actually, it is 3 in 1, not 2 in 1. Program and project, grants, as well as portal. It is based on web. So you get 3 things: portal, the grants, and the project management system.
Great. And so you see the differences, right? If you start with the problem the customer has, which is reduce report generation from 2 weeks to 5 minutes, then you can actually measure that difference. That's what we talked about, the value proposition. The value proposition is how much time and money and lost opportunity is there during those 2 weeks. And whatever you can charge that difference, right? That's you're arbitraging that gap. It also means that anyone else that can solve that problem in a totally different way is your competitor too. So there could be people that have a web-based solution and they're in South America delivering this to small enterprises. You don't even think they're a competitor, but suddenly they can solve the problem and it takes someone, it's even easier and cheaper than yours. Suddenly that company that you did not think was a competitor is suddenly a competitor. And so if you think about this backwards, which is from the problem to customer, you realize that the perspective changes significantly for all businesses, right? Is this helpful or is this interesting?
Yes.
Okay. Let's keep going this, and we'll do some more opportunities to talk as well. So in terms of value proposition, the idea is to be very, very honest with yourself. And this is, my parents were both professors, scientists who became entrepreneurs. So I know that entrepreneurs, you often are very proud of what you've done. You've invested your whole life into something. You believe it's the best in the world. It's very hard to be honest with yourself, which is to look at it and say, you know what, maybe this isn't that useful. It's very hard to say that to yourself. And but it's important to do, because what you want to do is to decrease your own ego and put yourself in the shoes of the person you're selling to, and put yourself in their brain. Right? And figure out, do you really have a product to solve their problem, or is it just a great invention? Is it just a great technology? What's the real value to the person using it? If you remove yourself from the equation, think about what is their problem. Are you solving a real problem? Are you really addressing a need that they have? Is this something that people will actually pay for and continue to use? In America, we say, well, the dogs eat the dog food. That is, you can create the greatest dog food in the world, on a board, right? Your computer program tells you this is the best dog food, but if the dog doesn't eat it, it doesn't matter, right? And that's really the issue. Is great engineering doesn't mean a great product, a great solution for the customer. Can it be made at a low cost that allows you to make a profit? And is the market big enough, potentially, to make this worthwhile? So now we're going to talk about the business model. So the business model all derives from this value proposition. Right? Because the value proposition means you know that someone really, really, really needs this. They have a real problem. You're solving it. Now you can start to figure out how much you can charge them for it, and then how much it costs you to make that. And you can build on a whole business from that. So what is your strategy? How will you make money? Who are your customers? Why will they pay? And then making a credible presentation about that. The ability to communicate. You think about this again, right? Value proposition. What is value? Value is perceived. It's one person versus another person. People exchange information, they figure that out about communications, right? Communications is actually the essence of economics, even though people in economics wouldn't agree with that. But communications is essentially the basis for commerce. And then you can derive revenue, cash flow, profitability, but it all comes from this idea of what is the value that you give. So a business model is a diagram of flows between a company and a customer. It's hypothesis testing. And this is, some of you have been doing this for a while. You realize that your idea in the beginning about your business is nothing like it is now. And it's probably nothing like it's going to be in another year. It keeps changing. And this is where business planning doesn't work very well, because business planning assumes you know exactly what's going to happen. Business modeling is hypothesis testing, which is, I think this is maybe going to be the answer, so I'll try. And I'll talk to the customer, and I'll listen, and I'll see if they care. And then you change. Each time you go there, they don't like it, you change, you adapt, you make your product different, you go back, right? You try a different customer, you keep changing. And this is not natural to a lot of people. You know, I came from a family with a computer science background. And computer science, it either works or doesn't work, right? It's not if there's a single bug in the program, the whole thing doesn't work. In business testing, in business experimentation, there are many bugs. Every time you go out and talk to a customer, it's okay if you don't have everything perfect. You're just trying something different. And so this is what we call it's rapid cycle iteration, right? Constant going back and forth. So I borrowed this from a presentation. You can't see this on the bottom. A gentleman named Steve Blank included this, and I think he took it off of another website. But the basic building blocks of a business model, and I'll explain why this iteration works, and I'm going to ask you questions as well. So, which customers and users are you serving? Which jobs do they really want to get done? So I'm going to start with this question, right? Who are the customers? So I'm going to ask our folks our friends at English Power, provide an answer, experiment. Give an experiment on who do you think your customers really are?
All English speakers in Palestine.
All English speakers in Palestine. That's your customer.
And
Foreigners in local, but
Okay.
the language.
and everybody who used to in Palestine living in the
Okay. And everyone in Palestine, who used a diaspora, Palestinian diaspora. I will add another thought, which is that I think you have another customer, which is the hotels, restaurants that are trying to reach these people, right, as potential advertisers. And so you have two customer bases, which is okay. Lots of businesses are dealing with two customers. You have your users, and you also have the people that will pay you to access those users, right? So a lot of what thinking about customer means is sometimes the person you think is your customer is not actually the person who's going to pay you for it. This is true in the medical field, right? At least in the US. If you're building a medical product, the person that is going to use it, the patient, actually is not going to be the person who decides, usually, if they're going to buy the product. In the US, it's not even, sometimes it's the doctor, but it's not even the doctor. It's often the hospital, and sometimes not the hospital, it's the insurance company that reimburses the hospital, that then is where the doctor works, that the patient uses, right? So it's very difficult. If you think about the medical device, it's sort of the classic example of where the user of it actually is different from the person that pays for it, and is often 3 or 4 steps removed from the person paying for it. So it's very difficult because you have to convince users that users like this, but you don't convince patients. You have to actually go to an insurance company and explain to them that this product is that users like, and will make the insurance company money, and will make the hospital money, and will make doctors money all the way through. So it's actually if you think about it, it's actually a very complex customer. This is a more complicated question than it seems, right?
And if the patient is not satisfied, the whole system breaks down, right? If they just
Sometimes, but sometimes no, right? I mean, are you satisfied in a hospital? Really?
Even if
You know?
he's not satisfied.
Yeah, it's not always the case.
They are getting the money.
They're making the money. They don't necessarily care if you're really
Nobody
satisfied.
else is.
Yeah.
The other
It's
else.
a complex question, right? It's not always obvious that the end user is the one that matters. It should, in a perfect world, but it's not a perfect world, right? Remember, in business, I want to separate out between what motivates you to run a business and the running of a business itself. I like to say that you have to wear 2 hats. One hat is, I'm in this business because I want to create something of value. I want to change the world. I want to make the world better. I want to improve people's lives. That's often the reason a lot of people become entrepreneurs. They really believe this is good. It's good for people to use. That is a separate question than how do I make a business out of this. Business is a very cold financial calculation and a very realistic assessment of where does the money come from to keep this business. You have to be able to put one hat on and take the other hat off. It's what business people do. You get motivated by the passion, but you keep the business alive by being very, very cold about the money. So the value proposition is right here. So it's what are you offering them? What is it getting done for them? Do they care? And the channels. How do you reach them? Right? And this is this is a very complex issue too. Maybe think if there's some volunteer here that can maybe tell me what the channel is that they're trying to use to reach their customer. Wow.
Yeah, sometimes it depends. There's a direct channel to the customer, who's the end user is the one that's buying. And sometimes you have to go through distribution channels like an agent or a distributor who is your immediate client that's going to take the product from you and resell it to somebody else. Okay? And each one has got to, you have to treat them in a different way. Especially when you're marketing the product, not saying marketing the product. You know your immediate client, you know his immediate needs, you can provide the solution, you communicate easily with him. But when you go, for example, what I'm trying to do is to find, let's say, distributors abroad, your immediate client is a distributor. You have to convince him that there is a market for that product. So at the same time, you know, he has to give you the feedback and say, well, yeah, this can work or not. He's not the end user, but he can also give you the feedback.
So the question is, when do you need a channel, or when do you go through a distributor? How do you decide what the channel is? Someone else that hasn't talked. Sam, you're sitting there. I'm sure you're thinking about all these things all the time.
I am. I'd rather them speak and me listen and learn, which is a better avenue at this stage.
I think someone might need a channel or is looking for a new channel when either he doesn't have the financial capabilities to penetrate a certain market, or he doesn't have the contacts or the channels or needed, or he doesn't have the physical existence in that market, and he needs somebody existing in that market, working in that field, and he knows the ins and outs of the industry, he knows the channels, he knows the runabout mentality of the people of his environment, of his, and he needs, and you need to partnership with him or to co-work with him so he can promote or market your product in his market.
If you think about what underlies, what's underneath that truck, the channel?
What?
Right? Underneath the truck, the picture of the truck is the channel. What's the road on which the truck travels? What's underneath? Wheels. Right. It's ultimately.
Know-how.
No, it's actually, those are all good guesses. It's ultimately trust. Because a channel, in a perfect world, if you had a better product and someone had a need, you just match it directly, right? A channel means they don't trust you, and they need someone that they trust to bridge the gap. And trust is really hard for startup companies, because you're trying to sell, you're selling a solution to someone's business. Let's say you have a financial solution or an enterprise solution to someone's business, right? They've built their business for the past 30 years, and suddenly, you know, a little startup company goes up to them, and the startup company is like 3 people or 4 people in the company. And so someone spent their business, building their business for 30 years, and you say, put your entire accounting and enterprise system on our software. They'll say, why would I bet on you, right? Why would I bet on a little company? But if you had the brand on you that said, you know, Microsoft, then they'll be like, oh, this is a Microsoft? I can trust Microsoft, right? Even if it's 4 people that made the product.
This is the problem I'm facing. So
it is absolutely the problem, right?
I have the mentality that he goes for international brands, even if it's not catering him the best.
But is that his problem, or is that your problem?
He's putting himself in a safe zone. That I bought a brand.
Yeah.
The responsible guy, the senior manager in the company, he's saying, well, I bought a brand.
But don't we all do the same thing in daily life? We buy brands all the time, right? And why do we do it? Because we trust it's going to work, right?
And we trust the after-sales service.
So you have to buy trust. So using channels is a way of paying a price to buy trust. And that's why they exist. That's why distributors exist. You have to buy the trust.
I think you can let people try the product. I don't know, in terms of free of cost, and let them try it, be convinced, and then you can gain this trust. And even as a local initiative or with no name, if you convince the people, of course it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, but then after you prove that you have good customer service, you have good quality of idea, you know how to reach your aim, I think you can gain it.
You know, it varies so much from business to business. I'll give you an example. So in the past few years, you probably read about the whole clean tech boom in the United States. We had lots of companies trying to build alternative fuels. I saw hundreds of these companies out with algae-based, bacteria-based, all these types of alternative fuels in the U.S. Lots of startup companies started in this space. Think about it now. If you have developed an alternative fuel, right, who's going to use it, right? Do you think if you had a bucket of fuel and you stood in the corner and said, anyone want to fill their car up with our fuel, people will actually buy that fuel from you and put it in your car? Even if you say, just try it once.
Not my car.
No, yeah, exactly, not my car.
car.
Yeah, they'll be, who are you? Why would I trust you? And what's in this oil? Anyways, I don't know this oil. But of course, they don't know what's in the oil that they buy at the store that they buy from every week either, right? But they trust, right? So that's why now all these alternative fuel companies are collapsing, because suddenly they realize that they have to sell it through the distributor, right? The big companies still own the road, and they squeeze, right? And so all the profits that these little startup companies thought they would get, they're squeezed out by the big companies. And the big companies can buy the fuel from hundreds of startup companies at cheap costs. So distributors, the channels are very important, and they can kill you as a startup company.
I want to add something that is, I don't know how it fits in there, but the key people, sometimes, even if they don't know anything, maybe, especially in government agencies, they trust, I don't know, either they are corrupted or they trust only something that is more made in a foreign country or designed by foreigners. I don't know if this is the case only in the Arab world, but
it's true. Every startup company has a very hard time selling. This is true for every startup company, really, everywhere. It's not just, you can't just say, well, we're Palestinian, it's harder for us. It's hard for every startup company. What you do, you have to solve this problem. You buy the trust, right? So we have a startup company. I hear your question. Let me finish this example. Our water purification company. I realized that to sell a little water filter, it'd be impossible to sell this little thing one at a time to individual customers if we were a small startup. So I brought in, as co-chairman of this company, some of the most respected executives in the water industry. And when we go talk to the corporations that are buying our products, they're on the front page. I say, you say the executives, the founding CEO of this major corporation. He had $1 billion corporation. He sold it to 3M. He's our co-chairman. And if we need him to pick up the phone, he'll call these people and say, yes, I'm the co-chairman of this company. I recommend this product for you. And what did we do? We made him a co-founder of the company. We gave him some stock in the company. We essentially took the trust that he has, the credibility he has in the business, we brought it into our company. Otherwise, this little company couldn't sell anything. It really couldn't.
But how you could persuade him?
money.
Well, stock money, you know what? I went to dinner with him probably 5 times. I spent a lot of time with him. Became a friend. And then I said, I need your help. Yeah. And eventually, I did a lot with this gentleman. And it became, and I just saw him, I had dinner with him a few weeks ago. He's a very good friend now. You build this, right? And I know this is harder in some places than others. In the US, it's easier to start fresh and create a new relationship than other places. But you can do it. And then this gentleman was part of your company. And then he's part of it, and he is now motivated to make this company successful.
Well, you are our channel. You are our main channel.
Well, you need a lot more channels.
No, but I'm saying at this moment, you are our channel.
Yeah.
You
can build these. You can build the trust you need to create these.
He should be one of your arms.
A customer relationship. So you can go direct to customers, right? If you build that trust, right? They actually know you, they like you, and then you have a brand, and then you become, a big corporation, at least in their heart. This is also why websites for startup companies are so important, because a little startup company with a website that looks like $1 million is that, for the customer's perspective, is $1 million. Right? They don't know that you've got
Three people are running it.
3 people running it. They don't know.
Running the whole show.
But you have to make it look like it's a very nice, expensive company. So in revenue streams, which is what does the money look like, right? So we build this up block by block. And you notice the value proposition is still in the middle, right? That's what drives everything else. And then the resources. So backup. So how do you make this stuff? What allows you to do this? And this is what we talk about. The ecosystem actually drives a lot of this, right? And this is actually very important. And I know this is difficult in places like Palestine, but in the U.S., for instance, if you want to patent something in most parts of the world, we had a startup company that wanted to patent something. The local law firm said, well, you have to give us a $10,000 retainer first. That means pay us $10,000 first, and then we'll draw down the money in advance. A startup company doesn't. It was 2 guys, 2 students at a university who started a new company. They didn't have the money. So they went to the law firms in California. The law firms in California said, oh yeah, well just pay us when you close your investment round. Right? It's a different mentality entirely. But that's why the ecosystem matters. Those little things, like will a law firm require upfront payment or later payment, they either kill or enable startup companies. They seem so small, but they actually are they're life or death for startup companies. Activities. So time up, 15 minutes left. Okay. Key activities, so what do you need to do to perform well in your business model? That's crucial. And then partners. That is the ability to draw resources. So this is where, when I brought in the co-chairman for our filter company, he was a partner. He actually made all this possible because he was behind us. He provided, the credibility for us to do all the other work that we were doing.
Also trust.
It's all trust, yeah.
That's another trust block.
You think of what startup company is. You're, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 25, 30 people, right? Taking on the whole world. And you think that you've got the ability to do it. It actually doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it, but people do it anyways. And the only way you keep 5 or 10 or 30 people organized is because they trust that you're going to do it together. And so that's why the ability to mobilize trust is actually very important in entrepreneurship. Because 30 people doesn't become 50 or 100 unless everybody agrees that this is worth it for them. And that's really what makes entrepreneurs special. You had a question earlier, Lee. I am sorry.
My question was, there is an alternative than having channels and distribution channels, which is really start going through this chasm and going through this bell curve, or going through finding these innovators and early adopters of your technology and trying to reach the early majority yourself, rather than going through distribution channels. And the question would be, when would you make the decision to go through channels versus doing it on your own and building trust internally as a startup company and going to the market yourself?
My answer?
Sure, and other people's answers.
It's based on the cost perspective. When you know that you're going to a new market and you need to establish a company and pay the setup of this company and do the organization and finishing the company and establishing the company, and you need 2 years to establish contacts in this market, okay, and this 2 years will cost you a lot, okay, then you will rather look for a partner who's existing in the market and who knows the market and who knows the environment and who knows how people think in this market, how people buy.
But channels are also with cost, I mean, in terms of profit margin.
Yeah. So instead of starting from below 0, you're starting from +10. So
what if after 2 years you hit profit margins that would equal the same revenue stream that you would do with channels?
This is the feasibility study.
Which path will you take?
This is the feasibility study. This is the feasibility study you should do, and you should reach before approaching any partner, deciding which is better for you.
I think it's
because after 2 years, the whole world might change.
Sam, your comment.
No, if you want to continue. First of all, Azmi, with all the respect to you and everybody else in the room, actually that's $1 million question, is when do you invest into channels and so on. And it's not so easy to address.
You're right.
And it's not something about doing a feasibility study. I mean, you do a million feasibility study and research and look at the money you have. Yeah, you sign up bad partners and bad channel partners, and so it's not an easy question to answer. It never is.
It's a process.
Yeah, but the one thing that I would like to add, and I usually don't like to add many things, I like to listen more than to talk, but it's something,
He likes to buy, not to sell.
but I tell you is,
That's a disclaimer.
you can have, going back to what Victor said, the greatest product in the world. The customer is not buying the product. The customer is buying you. And if you cannot present yourself well, I mean, again, you can have the greatest product in the world. And so really, you have to focus on you. And you said the right word here about the image thing. You know, you can have like Yahoo. Yahoo started, we had 9 people. You know, Yahoo had $25 million in the bank. It had 9 people. That's it. You know, VCs were dumping, you know, cash in them when they started off, but their image was unbelievable. You look at all the successful in Ferrari. People think Ferrari is a huge company. Ferrari, you know how many employees Ferrari has? You know, it's a tiny company. And some of the greatest companies out there today are small
You
companies.
know how many people employed at Twitter right now?
Yeah, you see on Twitter?
Yeah, it's like a few hundred people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it is, you know, so the 3 things I wanted to mention, just to complement what you said. First of all, don't complain. You know, we say we're Palestinians. First of all, I need you as colleagues of mine to remove the word Palestine out of your mentality. I'll tell you why. We want to compete on a global scale. So let's have a product competing on a global scale. Be proud that you are Palestinian, but the global market needs to know that you are a market player, that your product speaks for itself. We don't want sympathy from the world. So that's the first important thing that I want to tell to my colleagues here. Now, the great thing about we are in IT and software development or hardware development, that we can produce a product and nobody can stop us from producing this product. You know, yes, they can tie our hands, but we can still use the keyboard with our noses. We have a way to succeed as Palestinian people. So focus on you. Don't say that, oh, we have all these, you know, constraints upon us as Palestinians. Focus on you. Make your image. You know, yes, you have a great product, but make it look amazing. Because people are going to look at the amazing product, whether it's the kit, whether it's the product that you have, whether it's this wonderful software that you've developed. Yes, you can offer a solution to a problem, but if you cannot sell it, and the key thing is if you cannot sell it, your product will die after a few years. And sales is about trust, and trust is about you. And really, I tell you, I do have limited experience. I don't say that I'm the best, I have the greatest experience in the world, not at all. But I've always sold myself first, and my 7 companies were created based on that. And alhamdulillah, you know, with the great, you know, blessing of God, we as a, you know, corporations and companies, we developed. And believe me, we were ourselves, and our product was not even developed yet. We didn't have a product. Yet 2 years before the product was even out there, we were selling because people trusted us. It is you. And I cannot emphasize how important it is to be you.
How you present yourself.
It is you.
Yeah.
People buy from people.
But this is for the local market. What about for the regional or abroad? They don't know you. You maybe you can, between double quotes, sell yourself to those people, the local who knows you. But what about the others?
So that's why you focus on
So
the
you have
image.
to have partners or channels.
I agree with you on that. But how do you get the partners and channels? You have to sell yourself to these partners and channels for them to be convinced in you. So it all goes back to you and the image that you portray.
It's true. It's the partners or channels. They are who they are because their ability to screen out the stuff, right?
Yeah.
People trust them to pick good things. So if you're approaching someone, so we work with lots of corporations. Let's say in the biomedical industry or the large corporations. Within each of these corporations, they have groups of people in charge of bringing in new technologies, new products, new innovations from around the world. It's usually only about a small group of people. You think of Procter & Gamble, how many people? Maybe 10, 20 people total in charge of all of Procter & Gamble sourcing new innovations. They look at you, even though they're the distribution channel, they'll judge you and make sure your product, they'll look at your presentation, they'll look at how you dress, they'll look at how you talk, because they want to know that they can rely on you. Because they're gonna spend $30 million to roll out a new product line. They want to know that you're gonna be there. You're not gonna back out. And so the ability to present yourself as if you're already there, as if you're already successful is important.
It's like the example existing in the local market in the real estate sector. Like someone is selling the apartment on the map, and the other one is selling the apartment after it's existing and the building is done. The first one is taking the money and is building the whole building in 1 year, and he's giving you a turnkey apartment after 1 year, and you're investing your money because you trust him. And the second one is he has to do your job before.
You're paying money to someone who has a piece of ground. Maybe they don't even have the land yet, right? That's the ability to sell. It's sales and marketing is communications at the heart of everything.
I guess the difference is that if you have time and money to wait and do the old-fashioned way, or versus finding channels that makes your life easier and cut the time for you instead of waiting time.
It's not just easier. I think the world, the internet has made things so competitive now that if you have an advantage today, if you start to show success, they'll crush you fast. The big companies see you've got an interesting little product. Like your technology, I remember this when I saw it. It's very nice. If you become more and more successful, there's lots of toy companies, game providers. They can make their own system. So what you want to do is, and they can quickly replicate what you're doing. So what you want to do is you partner up with big companies that can compete against them earlier, right? And you can actually accelerate your process. And yes, it's time and money, but time and money, the world changes constantly. So by the time that it takes to get you there, things may have changed completely. And this is what, who would have guessed the world, who would have guessed 3 months ago the Arab world would be where it is today, right? Things have changed so fast, and it gets faster and faster.
I have one comment from personal experience. I think as entrepreneurs, when we develop something new, we are much more focused on the technical aspect.
Yep.
And we are not really, it's not easy to get out of the market. And I think in this respect, we need to build trust with these channels. These channels are very important, especially for startups. Because first of all, we don't have the resources and we don't have the market experience. What we have to concentrate on, I think, is to provide the right and solution that's going to work, that's going to be there. So, and also build up some references where it's been used, utilized, and what have you.
Yes.
I think these channels you talk about are very, very important because we are small. We have to really get this idea that we're as if we're the only ones, as you said, doing these things. We're not the only ones. There are many, many others all over the place. It's just that we have to decide with our startup, what is our role within that startup? Are we marketing, developing, sales, blah, 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 or are we doing, we should be doing what we're good at and get somebody else to either as a partner or as a distributor or as a helper, whatever it is, to do the other things where, let's concentrate on our strength in the business, in this startup, at least in the beginning. In the beginning can be 5 years, can be 10 years, we don't know. Okay? But let's concentrate on what we're good at and then build up our other experiences, fill the gaps, as we go along. But it's important to get to the market with a good product and quickly. And the only way I feel we can get to the market is by getting external through external channels. We cannot do it on our own.
Let me give you the next few slides. Cost structure, also very important about what the model looks like. And then I'm going to finish. It's frozen. These are all building blocks, but then ultimately it's all guesses, right? This goes back to the beginning of the presentation, which is you just don't know the answer in advance until you start trying, right? And a number of you have been out there in the market, you kind of get it wrong the first time. You get it wrong, and you get it wrong, and you get it wrong. And then suddenly, something sticks. And then you think you have something, and then you start to do it again, and then you get it wrong again. But then you keep trying, and keep changing it, right? And that's the nature of business development. But it also means the faster you can cycle through and test something out, the better it is. And so that's what I encourage all of you to think about is this whole concept of just thinking about what the value is to the end customer. And because value is something that's perceived in someone else's mind, you need to talk with them and have that communication. Otherwise, you'll never figure out what it is they really are concerned about. Often what you think matters to them is not what they actually care about. And then start trying to put together different ways to solve that problem. Every startup, Google, I can give countless stories of companies that you know, almost didn't make it, right? Google almost died. When they invested, the company was on the verge of collapse until they had, one of their board members was also a board member of Yahoo and said, well, why don't we use Google as cut a deal with Yahoo and actually provide services to Yahoo? And suddenly they became part of Yahoo, and suddenly everybody learned this company, Google, had better search engine technologies, and everybody moved over there. But almost dead. I mean, they were really on the verge of collapse. This company was sold a few months ago for $2 billion, called 3PAR. We're actually close to the former chairman of that company and the lead investor. That company 3 years ago was dead. That took 13 years from the time they invested in the company to the time they sold the company for $2 billion. 3 years ago, the company was going down. They developed cloud servers. And at that time, 3 years ago, the economy was terrible. No one was buying cloud servers. They thought the industry was about to collapse, and it just turned around. So every single startup company is going to either die or get very close to death over and over again. And you have to be prepared for that and just survive. Just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. One of the things I think a lot of people aren't used to is this idea that mistakes and failure are actually okay in this business. And it's not the case in traditional business planning, right? A failure off your traditional business plan is like the end, right? You start over. In the startup world, it's okay. You learn. It's a learning experience, and you try again. And if you work with people around you that also have that same mentality, you'll be okay. We deal with this all the time in our startup companies. The biggest test of a startup company we have is how people respond to those near failures or failures. And we find sometimes entrepreneurs, they go crazy. Like something falls apart, they go nuts. And then you realize this is the wrong person, you know, because they can't handle it. We have similar situations where something goes wrong. And in fact, I had one of the CEOs of my company call me and say, it's all going wrong. Nothing's working. None of the testing is working out. I don't know. They're afraid all the investors are going to run away because the CEO trusted me, so he called me with these things. He thought they're all going to run away. How are we going to keep this company alive? And I told him, you know what? They're trusting you. If you present a plan on how we address this problem, and you do it thoughtfully, and you think about it, and you do it in a very mature way, everyone's going to respond to that. But if you panic and you tell everybody you don't know what you're doing, everyone's going to run away. Absolutely. And so how you respond to this process of guess, experimentation, mistakes, failures, and recycle that and do better is really what drives the success of these companies. Any other final questions or thoughts? Yeah.
We have a question. Maybe many of the people here would like to have the answer from you. What the people abroad, including the partners or channels you are looking for in the state or any other country, how they look about Palestinian products?
I don't think they care.
How come?
They just want to look at the product. I think they just want to know if it's a good product or not.
Don't they see the empty part of the glass? That Palestine means what they see from the media. They always see the bad, or the bad and negative pictures, either war or maybe problems here, political problems or whatever. So will this affect the solutions or the products we may sell to those markets?
Well, I'll say a few things. It's a complex question on that. When I go buy typical goods, I never look at where they're made. But if I'm buying a service on which my entire business depends, I'm buying, I'm going to bet my entire company on your product. Then I'd like to know what the risks are of you delivering that. But I think you can address that by how you present it, right? You can say, look, we're a company that's got our development office here, but we have, we manage our risk, and here's how we actually have insurance. We keep our data in multiple locations around the world. I mean, there's ways you can address these questions. I don't think they're so. I think Palestinian perception of how bad these issues are much worse than what the rest of the world thinks they are. I also think that the U.S. you benefit in the U.S. if you're working in the U.S. by Americans' ignorance of most of the world. So you could probably get away with saying you're, in a make-believe country and they wouldn't know the difference. So I don't think it's as bad as everyone thinks it is here.
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah.
So there was a survey out there of how many people know even where Palestine exists. Less than 0.1% of the world know about Palestine. Less than 0.1%. So, that really know about, if you ask them legitimately what is the Palestinian Israeli situation, they actually know about it. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because I know and I believe in my heart that you have such an outstanding product. So rather than trying to get world sympathy for that, I would rather focus on your product to show the world that it's the greatest product and it can compete on a global scale. But if we go to them and say, guys, feel sorry for us, I don't think we'll succeed as an entity in the global economy, because simply they don't care that we as Palestinians exist. I think our work and the quality of the product will speak for itself.
Yeah.
And that will make a whole lot of difference.
If Skype was headquartered in Palestine, would you not use it? Right?
My concern was about the environment. I have met a number of times with foreigners from all over the world. They used to ask me, do you have electricity? Do you have internet? Do you have, can you go to work every day?
Yeah.
Because as I told you, the media all
اوكي استاذي طلع علي وتفضل احكي اللي بدك اياه.
احكي
تمام
بالانجليزي طبعا.
اكيد.
Well, I think about this workshop, it was very helpful. It is very important for entrepreneurs and local companies, even if they are existing for a long period of time, to actually reflect and hear what is out there. Even if you know the information, it's very important to refresh your ideas, to refresh your memories, and also to practice it in a sense. It was very interactive workshop whereby participants actually participates in their value propositions of their businesses, what is exactly how to do the business modeling against the business planning, which I totally agree with the presenter, that in IT in specific, business model is more important than the business plan, because the business plan is all the time is actually changing. If I wanted to actually reflect on what I have gained out of this workshop, I took some notes actually, and it's very important to actually rebuild the business model, not only for the company per se, which I present, but also it's very important to do it per product, per solution, per project perhaps, and that has been very helpful. We, for example, as Jaffa.net presented to them in the morning about a project we're working closely with them, with T2VC, which is about mobile ATM, converts the mobile machine into an ATM machine. And I'm actually going to take this business modeling and to build the business model for the mobile ATM as well. So it has been very helpful. And I think the infrastructure here at PICT is also very helpful to open the channel of discussions and communication among the participants, and also the T2VC and Bidaya project. With this kind of workshop, I'm sure the chasm to cross how to internationalize business and how to actually build it into an international business is huge, and there is no one single solution that can guarantee the solution is going to be easy. But that's again, all the startups all over the world face the same problem, is how to actually market their product and making themselves very successful. And we ought as Palestinians to actually work harder than others because of the gap in terms of the technology utilization and what have you, and sometimes even about the Palestinian image. But definitely when you work it out and you know exactly what's the odds against you, and you do all the risk and mitigate all the risk, I'm sure you can succeed. I'm more confident about the entrepreneurs in the Palestinian than before, because you can actually find great ideas and great entrepreneurs behind it.
Thank you.
كفي
لا ابدا يعني.
تفضل طلع علي بس طلع علي.
Okay. So talking a little bit about these wonderful people, Scott and Victor. Actually, my first experience was with Victor, telling me that my project wasn't good enough, and it was the best advice that Victor has given me to make sure that I would do research on my project to make sure to elevate the level of complexity of it and to do the right thing. Not needed to talk about my project right now, but the presentation was outstanding. Victor and Scott know what they're doing. The 9 blocks are really, really good. But really here, looking at the projects that are involved, we need to focus on their image. We need to focus on making sure that they know how to present themselves and not focusing on the technical aspect, but focusing on themselves. And hopefully that's one of the things that we gain out of this project. That's it.
It was very